Q4 blowout. What a quarter. Let's look at the numbers. Let's dig in a little bit. I'm Brian. Welcome to My Tesla Weekend. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. And this will be a longer live version on the screen. And you may also be watching this as the condensed version that comes out a bit later. So let's just get into it. If you're here, you already know. Wow. 305,000 produced, 308.6. Wow. Just wow. So for the year, 930,000 with deliveries of 936. I don't like to differentiate between the numbers because moving forward, there's not going to be a lot of, these numbers will narrow and oscillate, and it kind of doesn't matter. So let's take a look. These were my numbers. I said 290,086, and I felt very good about that. I felt very confident. So let's see how everybody did. Bloomy, the consensus. Again, if you're paying $2,000 a month for the Bloomberg terminal, you're doing something wrong because they missed by 15%. They missed by 40,000 cars. How do you do that? Troy, the absolute madman, the lunatic, he can't possibly be right. That's what I would have said. That's what I probably did say was the closest, but even he missed by 2.25. Troy has only had a couple bad quarters. Last quarter, I think he missed by 1.25. He and I both missed by the same amount in opposite directions. His projections are often quite optimistic. But literally no one saw this coming. This number was just so big. Ultra Bulls missed it. So what's the stock going to do tomorrow? I'm a bit curious. So one thing I wanted to talk about is what this actually means. There have been price increases. At Ford and GM and all those guys, they can't just change their pricing on the fly. So that price increase goes straight into the dealer's pocket. He gets an extra chalet in the mountains. Good for him. Tesla gets to keep that markup. 305,000. So if the markup was about $5,000 over what it would have been otherwise, were there no shortage, we're talking about an extra 1.5 above $1 billion. And for reference, Gigafactory only cost $2 billion in Shanghai. That was the total projected cost. Now, we don't know if that's for phase 1 or the additional phases as well. But I believe that number, 1.4 billion, 1.5, is about what they paid for phase 1. And it may have been less than that. So with just the gains from just the markup from just this quarter, they could build another factory in Shanghai or somewhere else or anywhere else. So if we're taking an average unit cost and assuming a margin of a paltry 23%, that provides for a unit profit of $11,000 and a gross profit for the quarter of $3.5 billion. That's a lot of money, man. Now, of course, this is gross. This doesn't include, all the expenses and whatnot. But it's massive. And what if this number's wrong? We know it's been inching up. What if it's 27? $4 billion. What if it's 31? $4.7 billion. So these are quite exciting numbers. Well, 50,000. A lot in Shanghai are cheaper than that. They are. We've got this from Inside EVs. They just upped the price on the base models to 43,000 on the Model 3 and 47,000 on the Model Y. But that's without any options, without any upgrades, without any trims. And That doesn't account for long range. That doesn't account for performance. I think an average selling price, 50,000, is quite conservative. So what if it's 55? 3.8 billion, 27%, 4.5. And if we get to that 31, 5 billion. So all good numbers. All good numbers. Was something else on here, wasn't there? No, that was it. Pretty. Super pretty. Thoughts? Thoughts? I did want to jump into the chat because there's some great stuff here. I think I'm going to leave it on this because it's so pretty. Bring the chat in. How is everybody? You excited? Do you think the stock's going to move tomorrow? That's a question I should answer. Will the stock be moving tomorrow? Yes. Yes, normally, I always say production's going to beat and the price will go up and therefore it goes down without fail. But a beat of this size is outrageous. Wall Street was off by 40,000 cores. That's just bad. So I told in the pre-show chat, ufologist said he just bought a Model 3 long range a few days ago, and I regret it because there are no superchargers on the big island of Hawaii. And I believe that, you know, there's the other network chargers. There's a couple of apparently destination chargers that are at resorts that are exclusively used for, available for hotel guests. But I did see that apparently the CCS1 adapter works in North America, but only with newer cars. So if what you bought was a newer car, it should quite possibly work. Also, a long range has a pretty decent range. So it's possible, just looking at Google Maps here, 98 miles across the island, home charging doesn't seem too prohibitive. I understand your frustration. If anyone has ideas or suggestions in the chat that could help ufologist, please post them, because I would be. Ufologist is expressing substantial frustration, and I accept that. I would feel the same way. I do think if I bought a $55,000 car, I would want more flexibility than that. Someone asked, why would you buy it if there's no way to charge it? Well, you know how long it takes from the time you place an order till the time you get an order, especially in a market like Hawaii, where it's a bit of a commute from the factory. And also in October, Tesla said that the CCS adapter for Models 3 and Y would be coming soon. So they ordered on that basis. And ufologist added 45 cents a kilowatt hour is the cost at the grid, which is substantial. So any questions, concerns, thoughts? We're going to make this a quick one or what? Oh, be nice. Be nice, you guys. Oh. One suggestion, sell the car and be done with it. You might be able to turn a profit on it. Which is quite unusual for a new car. There was a commercial back in the 90s, I think, where a guy was saying that the biggest thing you can do to, you lose so much value the minute you drive off the lot. So I'm not driving off the lot. He's just driving in circles around the parking lot. That'd be fun. Bishop is saying that there are 2 new locations under construction. I assume that means supercharger locations on the Big Island. I don't know. Let's talk about. Let's scroll down a little bit here, but I think we're going to talk about. 2022 and what all this means. These big numbers. But let's just finish up in the chat real quick. A lot of chat about that. Oh, here we go. Oh, do we see the 2 new buildings starting at Texas this month? I believe so. I believe so. The only question is, how badly do they need them? Do they need the office building to the west of the highway? Are they ready for the cathode plant? Do they know exactly where they're getting the lithium and what kind of extraction method is necessary to refine it? Because lithium comes from a bunch of different sources, and depending on the source, it requires an entirely different method to extract it into a usable form. Tesla economist says the surprise, the extra upside, is in Fremont. Boy, I hope so. I hope so. Because we already have a pretty solid idea of the numbers from Shanghai. And for those looking at, we'll get to the 2022 in a second. GLJ research. Yes. Rich Margin believes $1,200 Tuesday. I've seen a number of people suggesting that, and I don't think it's unreasonable. This was a big beat. And these numbers will have an absolute knock-on effect into my 11-year projections, my production projections, especially for the bear and ultra bear cases where the outlook just got better. And already, of my 5 models, my ultra bear already has production higher than what the Bloomberg terminal is showing. But those guys are... Oof. Have I mentioned that Giga Texas is supposed to start production this coming week? That is the rumor from Joe Tetmeyer. Apparently, they've already got models inside that they have built and are parked. They've got additional models that have been shipped out of state for testing and validation. That's the rumor. Production in Texas begins this week. But even if it doesn't, even if it takes a couple months, the 2022 numbers are going to be bonkers because they have to ramp the factory, right? Well, in Shanghai, they were only able to ramp to 150,000 in the first year. Can these new factories do that? Yes. They're way bigger, more than twice the size of Shanghai Phase 1. And Shanghai Phase 1 started with only 10% of localized parts. That makes it kind of impossible to ramp quickly when all your stuff's got to be imported, mostly, I assume, from Fremont. These factories are going for a much higher percentage of localized parts from launch, which will allow them to grow faster, and they're twice the size. That will allow them to grow faster as well. So do I think 300,000 from each factory this year? I don't think it'll be quite that high, but it's going to be high. It's going to be, if it's under 200, I'll be quite surprised. I saw it here a second ago. The suggestion was tweet at Elon that you don't have access to a charger. I think that's a good solution. Gary, thank you so much for the super chat. Regarding Leaps looking very seriously at selling Tesla at good reports, tops to hoard cash, then buying Leaps on dips, especially on sympathy moves at anticipated general market crash. 2 million plus in 2022, Tesla to 2100. So when it comes to margins, options, I am not your guy because I've speculated about it in my head, done some little fantasy football trading there, and the numbers I come up with would have made me broke many times over because the market is irrational and there are algorithms that trade faster and in ways that humans are simply incapable of that I do not wish to try to compete with. How many cars do I think Tesla, Berlin, Texas and Berlin will produce this year? 200 plus each is my guess. There will still be parts and supply shortages. Now that they're using the Ryzen chip, there's only so many of those that can be made. The foundries have an absolute ceiling. The fact that they've got these added margins to play with means they're able to pay top dollar and continue producing. So we shall see. Jason Rogers says, right now in Austin, they are storing inside. Wasn't Tesla deliveries a bit short by 10,000 or so in Q3? I don't know. Was it? I don't recall. But it was a big number. It was a massive increase from previous quarters. So I'm not sure. That's a good question. Go back to here. Go back to here. Okay. So let's talk about 2022 real quick and what that's going to mean. The professionals are saying we're looking at, 900,000 this year. That was great. They might be able to do 1.2 million next year. Shanghai is already at 70,000 a month run rate, which would be 960,000 right there. 840,000. 840,000. Yeah. Shanghai is already capable of 840,000, and they've got some expansions already in the works. We don't know how close they are to capacity. I would assume they are not at capacity. I assume that some point in the month of December, there was some bottleneck, some shortage that made it difficult for them to get to the highest possible level. The drawback is not demand. Demand remains strong. So can they, 840 just from there. Add in Fremont, especially if Fremont had a beat this month, we're already looking at, what would that be? Over 1.2 million. And then we've got Shanghai, Berlin and Texas coming online. That's another 200 each. We're at 1.6. And I believe 1.6 is the bear case. So the 50% year-over-year growth continues. Ford only produced, 4.2 million last year? And people are like, well, yes, but that's huge. Tesla is only a quarter of what Ford is. Right, but Ford was making like 6.5 million a couple years ago. So, part shortages. Yeah. Their dips in production and deliveries started before the part shortage. It was exacerbated by the supply chain issues. Sure, perhaps. But their problems are older than that. And if you'd have said just 2-3 years ago that right now, at the end of 2021, Tesla would be producing a quarter of what Ford is, probably wouldn't have been taken too seriously. The margins can increase because the demand is still there and it still appears to be expanding. And there's a lot of talk. There's always a lot of talk. The big dogs are coming. Good. It's about time. But the market isn't the EV market anymore. It's the car market. The total addressable market is 40, 50 million cars a year minimum. And probably closer to 70 or 80. So Tesla's got some headroom to continue growing. And with these margins, with the benefit of not having a dealer network that needs to get their beak wet, we're looking at so much money on the table. Tesla Shanghai started. Let's go back to the chat, shall we? Let's see what we got here. Disturbed says, I think the cathode plant is in limbo. They signed a deal with China, but only for 1 year, so they will still have to look elsewhere. And that's something we've talked about before. They had a deal with, who was it, Piedmont, but Piedmont is on hold due to environmental concerns, and that means that the type of lithium they were planning to use may have changed. And until you know what you're using, you can't really build anything. I mean, you can, but it would be a potential tremendous waste of money. Is the Semi going to be built in the same building that's in Texas right now, or are they going to build a new one? The current ones, the hand-built ones, are in Nevada. I don't know how much staff you need. The problem in Nevada is not a lack of space. They have the space. What they lack is the talent. Reno is a very small market, and it's difficult to make people move. So Semi may be built in Texas. We do not know yet. We do know that they're not interested in hand building. They're interested in going big from the get-go. So that is part of the delay. They're waiting on perfection. Shanghai started in 2020. Yeah. the last month of 2019, they had a handful of cars delivered to employees. And they started in 2020, and by the end of 2021, they were well into their ramp. They produced about 150 that year. Phase 2, which is the Model Y plant, commenced in January of 2021. And as we can see, 1 year of ramp there is magnificent. And Texas and Berlin are next generation plants. They will be at least as efficient as the Model Y plant in Shanghai, possibly more so. There have been presumably lessons learned. We know Tesla does not sit around. They don't believe in good enough. Well, you know. Mike says if the speculative EV names that have done nothing yet could jump 5 to 10% in 1 day last week, this should make Tesla jump. You'd think, but people are looking for the next Tesla, and emotional investors can be irrational. Brad Sloan, excellent drone pilot, covers Giga Texas, among other things. Boxes of solar panels were spotted on the roof. Yeah, I don't remember the name of the company now, but it looks like the installation of solar panels at Giga Texas is about to commence, which would be great. Fremont production was down about 10,000 in quarter 3. Yes, it was. It was, yes. It was down 7,000. That's correct. Get my logo on screen. Let's do that. Uh-oh, lost my chat. Where'd I go? Oh, come on, man. There we are. Let's find it. Where are we at? By the way, thank you all for hanging out. I think Tesla should start making their own commodity parts, belt tensioner, etc., and run them on better chips and higher voltage. Boy, a shift to higher voltage, 48 volts maybe, would reduce the amount of copper needed in the vehicle, reduce the wiring substantially. And that's something I know they've wanted to do, but I feel like they might be a little too entrenched and becoming a bit legacy of their own in that way. And that makes it difficult, but I do hope that that happens. I hope that that happens. Thanks, Mary, for leading. You did it, Mary. You did it. And that matters. As the competition is coming, their own dealerships are holding them back. Absolutely. So we're almost to the end, guys. Get your questions in now if you got them. Steve Hockey. In my mind, the next big challenge for Tesla is not the new models or the new factories. It will be service and charging infrastructure. How do you think Tesla will handle this, especially with short labor? Stock awards make them more likely to hire than the competition. And that's with dollars being equal dollars. That stock award has the potential to be meaningful and substantial. And I think a lot of people just want to work there, even if it's just in the parts department or the service department or the sales center. Plenty of land to build semi-factory in Texas. Absolutely. I can't believe they didn't start with, at the north end of the site is a big, flat, rectangular grass field. Why not build there? It's already clear and level. Hello, Gil. Hello, Kirk. Good to see you. What do you think of Tesla doing another graphite offtake agreement? Canada's Nouveau Monde Graphite would be a prime target. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. Structural pack should be in the Texas Model Y. That appears to be the case, Jason. Based on the empty shell we saw that was loaded into the paint shop, it appears that it does not have a traditional floor panel, suggesting that the structural battery pack would be included. When do you think we'll see Made in Berlin 4680s? Q2 or 3? The building is pretty far from done. And it takes a while to get the equipment in, configured, running, Q2 or 3. I think Kato Road's been stockpiling enough that hopefully they can supply both. But it could launch with 2170s. We just don't know. What's even crazier about the Shanghai ramp to 840K run rate is this was during the pandemic. Yeah. That's... When we saw the video last week, I put it in my one of my prediction videos. Oh, I put it in the Patreon bonus. You guys might not have seen it. Wuhua put out a pair of videos in Shanghai showing the rate at which vehicles exit the plant. And it's outrageous. It's like every 30, 40 seconds, a new car rolls out of each of the 2 production line doors. It's insane. Will Texas supply South America? Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I do think Fremont, at some point, once Model Y is ramped in Texas, may start taking down lines there in Fremont for complete rebuild to the new philosophy, to the new methods. Imported China cars, China lithium, and now Chinese solar panels on the roof of Giga Texas, starting to lose faith in Elon. Well, that's where the cheap solar panels are made. The problem with manufacturing solar panels is they're low margin commodities. So I don't know where else you would get them. I don't know of any affordable scale solar panel manufacturers in the U.S. That's more of a systemic problem, I believe. Do you believe Tesla will claim their past losses this quarter? As James Stevenson his prediction, I don't know. I don't know on that. When it comes to the financials, I'm out of my area of expertise, so I try to not cover those things too much because I know what I'm good at. 40,000 missing Bloomberg cars would need a big car park. Yeah. There are dozens of companies providing analysis. Each company has 1 to 3 analysts on Tesla. Those analysts are making 200, 300,000 a year. For what? For what? To provide garbage information. It is outrageous to think that these clowns do that. And then they go on Yahoo Finance or Bloomberg News from their living room. I at least put up a backdrop. It was like $25. Elon said he'll put $10 billion into Austin. The current building costs what? 1.1? No. The original plan was for 1.1 billion, but that was when the building was going to be built in 3 phases. This is probably going to be closer to 3.5, 4 billion. So I believe the 10 billion would represent what we see now, plus the office building, plus the cathode plant, plus 1 additional building. Maybe 2. And that would be over a 5 to 10 year horizon. That's my belief. Will they need a separate approval for the battery plant in Berlin once it's ready? Yes, because the factory will have its final approval before the battery plant is done, but I don't believe it would have the same obstacles as the vehicle plant. I believe it would be a more streamlined process with fewer moving pieces, as it were, in terms of bureaucracy. Some people think Tesla needs lots of factories. They're in for a shock. Yes, I've seen people say, well, they're going to need 40 factories. Well, that's just not the case. I've seen people more realistically say they're going to need 20. If you want to get 20 million cars, you're going to need 20 factories, each producing 1 million, which is kind of impossible. Is it? The new compact car might be of the Cybertruck philosophy. No paint, grossly simplified production in every aspect. Those could be cranked out at a speed comparable to the old school Jeeps from the 40s and 50s. Super simple. Throw them together. We know Austin will start with the Model Y, likely performance. Will all Model Y ship from Fremont to Austin eventually? I think so. I think the 4680s are going to power the performance models, which will just come from there, from Texas. Will a new Gigafactory be announced this year? I believe so. I believe 1 or 2 will be announced within the next 12 months. See any issues with Chinese issue with SpaceX satellites? I think China is attempting to make it an issue against Elon. I don't think it's against Elon. I think they like attention. There was a recent one. Oh, the Chinese space station had to adjust their orbit because of Starlink, because of a near collision. So the definition of a near collision, apparently, to NASA, is 2 kilometers, and this was 8 kilometers. There was no near miss. They're not in the same orbit. This would be a Starlink satellite that was transiting to a higher altitude at the time, and briefly was within 8 kilometers. And I don't know what their game is. I think it's more likely that they want to put SpaceX on notice, because they definitely don't want internet providers in China to not have, over which the Chinese government has no control. They want to maintain the Great Firewall of China. What is going into the Phase 2 part of Austin? We don't know. We don't know yet. It's an extension towards the stamping end of the building, so it could be stamping. But it doesn't look to me like they're going to expand southward on the footprint imminently, like we had originally thought. It looks like that space right now is going to be used for loading and logistics. To me, it looks like it's going to be a parking lot. But I've been wrong before. Elon has said he's more interested in expanding production at existing factories for now. And I agree with that, though it could be a factory for something else. It could be a battery factory, for example, in Malaysia or Indonesia, where they have nickel. And it could be a way to avoid export tariffs on those costly minerals. Bear. Hello, Bear. Do I think the next episode of Fast Charging with B&B, Tuesdays, live at 4 p.m. Pacific, will be the best one ever? Oh, yes. I definitely think that. Aerial inspection. I know right away I'm going to like you. Go Tesla. Yeah, welcome, welcome. Big Monday is not guaranteed. If it's not big, load up. I think that's not unreasonable. Chinese subsidies were cut at the end of December, and will be interesting if sales drop in Q1 of 22. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Although the first part of Q1 is always export heavy, so I think they'll have a better opportunity to evaluate if they need to reduce prices or pull other demand levers. Jason Rogers, probably only 50 or 60 additional approvals for the battery factory in Berlin. They've got some red tape. Gigafactory Berlin is one of the largest manufacturers of red tape in Europe, from what I can tell. Can't wait to see what the boring van looks like. There's some renders you can find from the big boring tunnel events. I hope they look like that. That'd be good. That'd be neat. Very futuristic. Do I foresee a Tesla motorcycle one day? No. Elon crashed a motorcycle once, and he no longer believes in them. Could be wrong, but also I think the margin would be too low. I think not the margin. The margin could be great. I think the total profit per unit would maybe not working, but a great relationship with Elon. They like each other, and they seem to share a number of philosophies. So I think it would be a good fit if he does, and I think Giga Berlin could benefit from having someone of Herbert Diess's caliber on board. Happy that your numbers were low? Mine were too. Very happy. Yes, I'm delighted. If I'm going to miss, boy, I want to miss on the downside. Because I was still, if they hit my numbers, I'd have been very happy, but this was a big quarter, man. Nobody saw this coming, and I am thrilled. Gigacasting is key to higher production. It is among the keys. The structural battery pack is also key. These are all going to help. Hillary Thornton, thanks for not having an opinion on everything and admitting what you don't know. Yeah, I think that's important. Boy, if I tried to spitball it on things I don't know about, those channels exist. Some of them are very successful, but I like to be able to sleep at night. Which is a lie. I usually sleep during the day. I sleep way better. CNBC guy said about Elon, I am converted. If loving him is wrong, I don't want to be right. I saw that. Yeah. It's hard. I'm curious what the spin from the Fudsters is going to be on this, because I can't see it. You can't say that, oh, well, they're running out. Will they overproduce? Now there's going to be no demand. We've got a 10-month, 12-month backlog. The demand remains. So I don't know. Well, I guess they'll fall back on the big dogs are coming and they're going to crush them. We've been hearing that since 2012. I hope someday it's closer to right, but for now, it's just not. VW's 2022 battery allocation at 1/10 of Tesla's mostly self-source supply. So, Gary, in Europe, there are a bunch of battery factories announced, that many of which I assume have broken ground. Batteries are coming, but they're all through middlemen, almost all. So the problem with outsourcing batteries is they cost more. The problem with insourcing batteries is now you have to have a new area of core competency, which is difficult. Both approaches are difficult. So it's going to be tough. I think Elon should concentrate on India. It has a population of 1.35 billion. Do you think Tesla will? I think India would be a good fit. And there were a couple mistakes in it about pertaining to export tariffs. But those are all not impossible obstacles to overcome. Do you think the Model Q will have a steering wheel, or will it only be a robotaxi? It'll have a steering wheel. I don't think we're ready. I don't think we're close enough to level 5 for that to make sense. It may be drive-by-wire, so that the wheel could be removed in the future, but I think it will still have a steering wheel, and I believe it'll probably have a mechanical one. Deese is 63. I think he'll retire. Yeah, but 63 isn't that old anymore. And Deese is in great shape, unless he has some other health concerns. I think he's still got a lot of gas in the tank. Might need to update that phrase. Where do I think I missed on the forecast? Fremont. It's got to be Fremont. On the, what'd they do? 13,000 SNX. I got it. 12,008. I'm very happy with that. The Shanghai numbers. Let me show you the equation here. I used the actual October, November, and then I took the best month, November, and added 6% and then adjusted it for the number of days that they were working. 29, because there were basically 2 days off around Christmas. And I was pretty comfortable that those were going to be the actual numbers. So the miss had to come in Fremont for the 3 and Y. And somebody else mentioned in the comments that they believe that that is also the case. I can't see the FUD either. Gordo blocked me. I don't know if I've been blocked. I don't follow him on Twitter, I don't think. I don't think I do. I had to Google to find his numbers. And they were a bit out of date. Those were from November. So he may have bumped them up since then, and no one asked. I would really like to know who's paying him, because Steve says, I'm 67 and plan on working at least 10 more years, just because. I don't need to. I just love what I do. Yeah. And work has shifted a bit in recent years, in the last 2 years, where workers have more opportunity to call the shots and do what they want to do instead of what they have to do than kind of ever before. Certainly since maybe after World War II. But when labor's short, you get some flexibility, and you can do what you want to do more so and get paid for it. I'm excited to see the specs of the new Model Y. How soon for deliveries to non-Tesla if they start production this week? Month or two would be my guess, but it's just a guess. I don't know if the specs would be different. They might even software limit the specs to match the current ones and then offer an uncorking sometime down the road. We shall see. They've done that before where production changes were made on the fly and then not announced until they were validated and then uncorked later, which is fascinating. Just saw your reply, your comment about Bloomberg idiots being paid $300,000 a year. Tell them you'll do it for $150 plus a Model X company car. I would do it for $150. I mean, I'm surprised that the big guys don't look at channels like mine or Dave Lee or Dylan from Electrified and get our feedback. We would work much cheaper because we would only work, a day, a quarter. But our numbers would be better and cheaper. But that's the old guard for you. They do things the way they've always done things. And so far, it continues to work for them. What quarter do I think the first Cybertruck is delivered? I don't know. I'm going to say Q3 or 4 because they've started loading in equipment, but that's not enough. And I do believe the 4680 factory has to be complete to provide enough batteries for the kind of production they intend to get right out of the gate. I watched one of those clickbait pie phone videos. So terrible. Yeah. There's a lot of pure clickbait channels now, and I see them pop up every now and then, and they're just, it's like, Tesla just announced this, the phone, whatever. I'm like, wow, I didn't hear that. And then I noticed the video's, 3.5 weeks old, and I'm like, right, so that's not a thing. Gil, I am 51. My batteries are low. Yeah. Okay. I think we should probably kind of wind it down here. What are we at? 5:42. Yeah, we can go a couple more minutes. Thanks for the comment about Herbert Deese. I'll check that. H57 math in the math error in the spreadsheet. 30 divided by 29. Yeah, I'll check it. Production in Austin starting this week. Yeah, they're already delivering. The current FUD is that they have to bring online 5 million production factory every quarter to get to or 500,000. I can't see the commas there. Yeah, 500,000 production factory every quarter to get to 20 million in 2030. Well, they're mistaken, and we know that because Shanghai is already producing well in excess of that. Disturb says India would be a mistake because the average income was only 4,800. So that's where China was 20 years ago, and going into China was a difficult decision for many companies, but India is changing. It's changing. It is going through what China went through 20 years earlier. And even if only, 1% of the population can buy a car, what do we say? Well, would there be 13 million people? That's a lot of buyers, and that's just the 1%. That would be enough to get the ball rolling, and especially with a $25,000 model coming online, that would be great for reducing pollution and potentially cheaper to own and operate than a domestic car that costs less than that. And by the way, I don't think $25,000 is going to happen just because of inflation since the time the car was announced. I think 27 is a more realistic starting place. I do have a giggle when media get the numbers wrong. Keeps the price down and enables people to buy. I'm buying for 5 years away from now, not now. So we should all congratulate them for getting it so wrong. My stock price range for 2022, Charlie, what I said is it'll outperform the market. That's my assumption. By how much, I don't know. How much VW will get hit after Giga Berlin starts? I think it'll be substantial. I think it'll be a real kick in the gut for VW, who honestly, I think, has taken the market for granted and believes that they've got it locked up. They don't. Neuralink will make phones obsolete eventually. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. It's a fascinating company. Tesla tiny home, that'd be neat. What I consider streaming earlier sometimes. It's almost 3 a.m. here in Germany. I love these streams, but can almost never catch them. So this one, I wasn't even planning on doing one, but I just felt there was too much to cover. I would consider doing different times. The problem is I'm at the end of the day on the west coast of the U.S., so I'm, 8-9 hours behind you. It's difficult, and I apologize for that. So it's something to consider. Do I see a 5-for-1 split? I hope it's at least 5-for-1. That would be a 420 split, of course. But I think 10-to-1 or greater would be even better. So we'll see. Excited to see how the stock reacts tomorrow? I am too, Digital Blade Canada. I have my go-to channels. I can recognize bullshit better than ever. Good. Good. Okay, 1.2 million minimum next year. I think we're going to wind this down. Big thanks as always to my Patreons who get early access bonus content and a look at the 11-year tracker at the $25 level and up. And I will extend that. If anybody wants to sign up today at the $10 level, I'll go ahead and grandfather you in for the year. So if that's something you're interested in, we can do that. Boy, that went too far. That's better. Just making sure I'm not missing any super critical last-minute comments here. I think 10-for-1 would be a much better split. Yes. Go there. Yeah, 308 deliveries plus 1,000 deliveries plus announcing Austin would be a great week. So a massive beat means a dip in the share price, right? Usually, yes. I don't know if you can see, but I can see my breath because it's chilly. Elon just gave people a chance to buy the dip. What more do you want? Brian, India's not China. Population density per resource, way different. I agree. But, it's a very, very big market. And I think getting into it would be advantageous. There's nuance to all of it. No two markets are the same. I would love to hear suggestions on where you would like me to make a video about the possibilities of the next Gigafactory. Do you want me to make one about Brazil or Russia or Malaysia? I could find pros and cons for all of those, I am sure. Xpeng delivery is even more impressive, 98,000 for the year, up 263%. Yeah, there's a Xpeng, Neo, boy, keep your eyes open, man. Those guys are coming. And the products appear awfully good to me. I would love to see teardowns, but I don't think that's going to come. Elliot says, thanks, Brian. And Mary. You gotta thank Mary. You got to. She led. That matters. She's not gold. She's lead. You guys are all overlooking IG Metal. When you talk about Berlin, they have a fight to the death because their future is involved with other car producers. Yeah. Brazil is a guess. Okay. Yeah, Steve, I would love to make those. Would love to see a video about your thoughts on the location of the next couple Gigafactories. Yeah, I think those are all reasonable things. Shit. Yeah, great. So, that's it. If you're catching this on the replay, leave a comment below. What did I miss or misunderstand? Stay tuned and juicy and all that good stuff. And thanks for being here, you guys. You are awesome. Thank you, Gary, for the super chat. And yeah, let's have a great 2022, shall we?